everyone, Xanaro Gaming coming at y'all with another video, and in today's video we are talking One Piece, and I wanted to go over the Paris finals, the big tournament that happened there. All the information I have here is on eggmaneventsite.com, so please go and check out this site. He does a lot of amazing stuff for all kinds of different card games on this site and is kind enough to provide all this information for us. But I wanted to just go over the pie chart that they have here and then just kind of touch up on some of the decks that top. If you go based off the pie chart here, this really shows a lot of different topping leaders, which I think is a good thing for the game, being able to play all kinds of different decks in this format, even though a lot of people do feel like the Luffy and the Bello Betty stuff is kind of taking a hold. If you go based off of this pie chart and that's such a big tournament for this one, having so many different players in it, 1,024 players, kind of wild. 9 rounds of Swiss. I do think that it's still a pretty diverse meta. I think that knowing what some of the best decks are kind of helps other people to play against them. But I do think a lot of people are tired of seeing a lot of this purple stuff. And just be on the lookout on the channel. I probably will do a prediction ban list video for One Piece and a lot of the other card games, since Bandai has announced that we will be getting those soon. Now, One Piece's ban list usually just match what are in Japan, but they have announced recently that Japan will be getting their ban list pretty soon. But getting into the breakdown on the pie chart here for the top 32 leaders, you can see that Bello Betty came in first place with the amount of leaders, with 7 different Bello Bettys making it to the top 32. I think that this is because so many people are on the Luffy decks in general, of 3 or 4 different Luffy decks being on here. And Bello Betty just has such an amazing matchup going into a lot of these decks, and some other matchups that are really, really favorable and not as favorable too. But that is why they were able to perform so well. Being able to see just, so many people on the Luffy's means that the most of your matches are going to be against that. And you're taking a deck that absolutely destroys that deck, then you are going to be eating good. In second place is, of course, the OP11 Monkey D Luffy, the blue-purple Luffy. Now, this deck is super strong. Definitely one of the best decks, if not the best deck in the format. But it does lose to Bello Betty really, really hard, right? So that's why we see Bello Betty getting more tops in it. But both these decks pretty iconic in the matchups. Luffy wants to see everything else outside of Bello Betty, and Bello Betty wants to see Luffy outside of everything else. And it's a pretty iconic matchup. But I think if you ask most people, they would go with Luffy being the best deck in format. And from here out, right, it is a humongous drop, and that is something to talk about, right? Because there are a lot of other decks in these tops, but the main percentage of it, 13 different decks, that's almost half of 50% of the total pie chart almost, are these 2 decks. And then going down in line here, no particular order, 2 ofs for these, 2 buggies, 2 smokers, 2 laws, 2 jewelry bonnies, 2 EBO2 Monkey D Luffy, 2 of the OP9 Marshall D Teach, 2 of the OP9 Monkey D Luffy. So a good mix up of decks that were able to get 2 tops here. Buggy being something that is really iconic now too. Buggy does have some very good matchups and some really bad ones, right? It can just get blown out by just certain specific cards, but it is a really annoying deck to go into. Smoker being really good, abusing a lot of these just generic good green cards that we have so many of right now. Really cool to see Law getting 2 tops here. I think that this deck has taken some time for people to latch onto, because it does have kind of a high skill cap about you doing your plays, getting your combos down the right way and ordering things the right way, and then fine-tuning your deck to kind of counter what you think you're going to see more of. I do think that this is a really cool deck to look out for, getting some more support with some of this green stuff coming out. Then Bonnie coming up with 2. Bonnie's just been the most consistent, best green deck in the game for such a long time. It's the first deck that I really built to play in One Piece, Boa and then her. And I still have both those decks built, and I have a really good time with Bonnie. She's just such a consistent leader. I don't think she does anything crazy, but some of the green cards that she used may end up getting hit just because of what's going on with Luffy and a couple other decks. She may be getting a hit just because they are abusing some of her cards. The EBO2 Monkey D Luffy, just a solid deck. Two Teaches being in here is really cool. So I do think that Teach is a really cool deck that you can play right now in the game. But you're gonna be just kind of like how Bello is, where like some of your matchups are a little more uneven across the spreads, whereas like Bello does have probably some more matchups in her favor. And as Blackbeard, you really kind of want to see a lot of these Luffy decks too, but where Bello can end the game against these Luffy decks fast before they can try to get to the being able to abuse the giants. Blackbeard doesn't have a lot of ways to really end the game fast, so it gives the Luffy decks time to be able to beat him, even though some of those he does have a favorable matchup going into, but he's just a little bit slower. But a really cool, awesome control deck that has gotten more tools recently from the starter decks. So a really good deck to look out for. And then the OP9, Monkey D. Luffy coming in with 2. Following out the top 32, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different decks that got 1 tops in the top 32. Eustace, Captain Kidd, really cool. Glad to see this being on here. A lot of people like this deck. I like to see people piling this. You got Rob Lucci coming up with a top. Rob Lucci showing that he will never die. And I'm actually kind of surprised that there's not been more Rob Lucci's on here. I think that maybe he's just a little too slow to compete with the Luffy decks. And then obviously Bello Betty maybe just being able to finish him out a little bit too quick here too as well. Just pretty iconic matchups, but the deck is still consistent in what it does, being able to clear your opponent's board. So a solid deck to take in any tournament where you feel like if you just play consistent and hope that your opponents maybe don't see as many consistent hands and plays as you do, then you could definitely beat them. Love to see a Marco on here. I have a buddy who loves Marco, and I know a couple other streamers, including I think Eggman himself, really loves Marco. And then we get the ST13 Lucky D Luffy and 1 Zoro on here. Zoro just being a nice aggro rush deck. Probably a player choosing not to play Bello Betty took the Zoro, I'd have to imagine, into these Luffy matchups thinking they could do it. I will say that Bello Betty can finish the game a little bit faster than Zoro, but one of the more, standout decks on here, if I had to talk about a little bit more, is the ST13 Monkey D. Luffy showing up on here. Really cool. Love to see that someone was able to take probably one of their favorite decks to a big tournament like this and get into the top 32. Now, that is the pie chart breakdown. I do want to go into the actual topping decks, and I won't actually go into the list too much. I just want you guys to see like what the actual order was, right? So in first place, it was a Marshall D. Teach, being able to get past the Bello Betty players here and the Smoker. But one thing really cool to see is that this obviously is not in America, right? This is the Paris finals, and I do think that their meta is a little bit different than ours. I do think here a lot of people just like to play what they think is the best deck, and not so many different types of archetypes getting played over here. So I do think that if this was in America, there would probably be even more Luffy players, and some of these tops would be taken by that. But big shout out to all these different people. Kevin getting the win here with Teach, showing that if you do play your hands the right way and probably using some of the I didn't really want to get into deck list, but let's just see if he is using any of the really new cool cards. So the Stroger, Lafitte, ad thing. The Sajin Wolf, Kuzans, adding the new super rare, 3 of those, 3 of the Big Teach. Just one of the Kuzan is a little interesting. I know a lot of people like the Kuzan, but a pretty solid list, nothing crazy here. 4 of the full lead, you have to run that card. Tempest Kick at a 4 of 2 black holes, and 4 of the Searcher card. Pretty solid list here. Jesus Burgess really just still gets you there a lot of times, and the Lafitte being at a 3 of just a really solid card too. Just all these lists kind of keep a lot of the same cards, even with the support from the starter decks. Blackbeard still, has a lot of tools, but a lot of the best cards are figured out that you want to run of. I am curious of why the only one of the Kuzan here, but maybe a lot of people are only doing that to be able to cycle, your other characters out. Second and third were taken by Bello Betty. Probably matchups, I would have to assume that, the Luffys that were missing out on getting the top 8 here, or the top 4, got beat by the Bellos. Teach was able to, probably not have to play against them. And then coming up, it'd be really interesting to know what exactly the matchups were, with 2 Bello Bettys coming in second and third, a Smoker coming into 4th place, and then a tie for all top 8 here. The rest of the cards being a Marco, a Bonnie, another Bello Betty, a Eustace, Captain Kidd, all rounding out the top 8, but not a Luffy, right? So the first Luffy we get to is the in the top 16 is going to be the OP11 Luffy, but then on out we'll see that it starts to kind of flood with a bunch of other Luffys coming into play here. But really, really cool, very diverse top of their metas here. I can only hope that whenever we have our big tournaments here that they are this diverse. I think if you went to go show someone this, they would be like, wow, that's a lot of Bello Betty, right? But she does just do so well into so many different things. And I think that a hit may be coming for Bello Betty, to be completely honest. Maybe just one card off the list in particular that a lot of people are thinking about. But really cool to see the diversity on this one. That's all I'm going to do for this video. Please leave the video a like, subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everyone hanging out with me today. Peace.